Hello guys and welcome to episode 76 of the Beat Your Backlog Podcast, a podcast discussing the things gamers like to put off, get to another day, and oh yes, will definitely beat later their backlog. I'm your host Adam and today we are heading to Liberty City in one of Rockstar's lesser known Grand Theft Auto games, Chinatown Wars. The game was developed by Rockstar Leeds, which to me is a little bit weird to think of because my hometown is about 40 minutes away from Leeds, so it's crazy to think that a Grand Theft Auto game was developed so close to home. And also by Rockstar North, that I think are all based in Scotland, and was released in March and October 2009 on the Nintendo DS and the PlayStation Portable respectively. And like most people in their mid-30s, I grew up on the Grand Theft Auto games, even though I probably shouldn't have. My history with them goes all the way back to the Top Town games, Grand Theft Auto 2, and Grand Theft Auto London on the original PlayStation. But the games I remember the most were the ones that put GTA on the map, Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and of course San Andreas. This time was a bounty for Grand Theft Auto games, with them releasing annually and having multiple spin-offs. I was a PlayStation 2 and Xbox player, so had always avoided the spin-offs and sort of saw them as lesser versions of Rockstar's open-world sandbox crime fantasies. That was until recently. You may know that I have a growing Nintendo DS collection, and having read multiple best games on the Nintendo DS articles, I decided to pick up Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars, as it consistently made it into these lists and tended to place high up on them. I wanted to know what a GTA game on a Nintendo system would look like. Would it be toned down for Nintendo's younger audience? Would content and features be cut? And how would a shooting game work with a stylus? Let's find out in my Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars Nintendo DS review on this week's episode of the Beat Your Backlog Podcast. But before we get into the podcast, I would like to remind you that you can support us on Patreon. If you do, you will gain access to all of my content 24 hours early, and you will unlock the Beat Your Backlog bonus vault, which is filling up with exclusive podcast episodes only for Patreon supporters. I might have left a little taster of one on the end of this episode. Let's see if I remember to do it. But yeah, if so, do remember to listen on after the end because there will be a little snippet of an episode there. And if you like that, you can go over to patreon.com/beatyourbacklog. Subscribe there at the $2 or $5 tier, and you'll get access to all, I think, 8 episodes that are currently there right now. And as always, before we get into the episode, I want to say thank you to my Patreon supporters for supporting me. And let's get on with the show. And in this game, the story starts off quickly. You play as Huang Li, the playboy son of a legendary triad boss, and Huang is on his way to Liberty City to deliver a cherished family heirloom, the Yulian, an ancient Chinese sword, to his uncle Wu Kenny Li, to ensure that his uncle inherits his father's crime empire. Upon landing in Liberty City, Huang's plane is attacked, he is shot in the head, left for dead, and the sword is stolen. Huang survives and manages to make his way to his uncle's safe house, where he learns that his father's death was in fact a murder, and his uncle's inheritance as the leader of the triads is anything but secure, and also that the legendary sword is ironically not that legendary, old, and is in fact a cheap Chinese knockoff. Huang makes it his mission to find his father's killer and get retribution for his murder. To do this, he enters a three-way battle between the triads to crown a new overlord. The fight is between his aging uncle, the slightly delusional party boy Chan Zhaoming, and the sinister and sexually deprived Zhao Ming. Even though the scope of the game is smaller than other GTA titles on home consoles, the story is nonetheless a GTA story from the 2000s, with the slightly childish humour making the game a parody of a crime movie. I really like the sort of love triangle of these 3 new potential bosses in the game. It was kind of funny to see them. You sort of play a fly on the wall in all of their plans as they were more or less trying to assert themselves as this new potential leader in the game. The only thing I thought was maybe a little bit lacking with the game was that it might have been cooler if you could influence who became the crime boss a little bit more, so that if you decided to go and only do missions for your uncle, he would be the prominent candidate to become the leader. But that's not the case. It's basically it's like if you've played a GTA game from the 2000s, there are missions that you can do more or less whenever you want to, but you have to do all of certain missions to progress certain storylines. So there's not really any influence over the game in that respect, but it was sort of cool being in between these 3 people that have these very distinctive personalities, and like I said, with the humour and the parody behind them, it was quite an entertaining story, which I liked. And yeah, I think it's a pretty good story from the GTA games, like from the 2000s. With the mystery of the stolen sword and the revenge of your father's story of your father's killer pushing the narrative forward. And looking at the game, you'd say it also looks like one of the original GTA, GTA 2 and GTA London games from the PlayStation 1 era because of its top-down perspective. So yeah, everything is you are looking down from the top. And if you've played any of those games or seen screenshots of any of those games, it doesn't look exactly the same, but it has that same feeling. Like I'm pretty sure most of the assets in the game are actually 3D, but the camera's perspective is just above. But yeah, you are looking down on basically the top of one's head and his shoulders. You're looking down on the top of cars, and there is a slight little sort of angle, so you can see more buildings. You're not just looking straight down on the buildings. But other than that, though, it's everything else about the game feels like a contemporary GTA game that was released in the 2000s. So things like the cars having radio stations surprise me that you can change. And even though there's not really any licensed music in the game, the tunes are still very cool and very specific to the genre of that radio station, which gives them, like with GTA, Vice City or San Andreas, where you're like, okay, I have favorite radio stations because they play a favorite style of music or a favorite genre of music. That's the same in this game where I was switching with the stylus on the touch screen to specific radio stations because I enjoyed the music more. And the game also has quite a surprising number of comic book style art cutscenes that usually play before and sometimes after every mission. And the art in them is all 2D, and it has like this interesting look of they look like almost like sketches or very basic illustrations, but there is this sort of Chinese feeling to how they are drawn, just maybe because of how the colors that are used. They feel very like something that you might see etched on a wall in a temple, or they're very sort of reminiscent of like a Samurai Jack for that very sort of blocky art style of the characters' faces, but the colors in the man as sort of they don't pop as much as they do in animations like Samurai Jack. But it is a very interesting art style, and there is like a lot of reuse of you can tell there's maybe 20 different facial expressions that have been drawn, and they just sort of switch them in and out as those emotions hit the story, but it kind of does a good job, and I'm surprised at how many there are because, like I said, they play most of the time or nearly all of the time whenever you go to a mission, which adds a nice touch and adds like an extra level of polish to this game that, like I said in the intro, maybe at the start I thought would be cutting some of these corners, but they're actually like, no, they aren't like fully animated like they would be in the other GTA games of the time, but they are nice nonetheless. And furthermore, there are also some like modern, and by modern I mean modern for the time, features in the game that I was surprised to see. So like being able to drive a boat or a motorbike. Like there's a mission where you have to take a boat and escape the Coast Guard, and I was so surprised that I could actually get in the boat and drive it. And I remember that being something also the first time I played Vice City, being like, oh my god, there's a boat and also driving motorbikes. I was like, oh my god, you can drive a motorbike in this game. In Chinatown Wars, it's very hard to drive one, so I didn't do it that often, but it was cool that you saw them in the game and that you could if you wanted to, because I remember, like I said, I remember those feeling almost revolutionary when Vice City launched. And also the gameplay is very similar to those games too, so it's mostly quite simple, like you go from point A to point B, do some sort of crime, and then drive back to your mission giver. It can get repetitive at times and surprisingly frustrating because some of the missions have fail states that are quite finicky. For one example, I remember there's a mission where you have to tail a Korean gang leader in your car, and the aim of the mission is that he doesn't see you as you sort of follow him, find out who his associates are, assassinate his associates, and then keep following him. And I kept failing like I must have tried it maybe 10 times, like over and over again, because apparently he did keep seeing me. The problem was that it wasn't clear why he was seeing me, because sometimes he would see me when I couldn't even see him on the screen. And then there was other times where he wouldn't see me when I was pretty close to him. So it was a very, very sort of, it was very sort of fussy in exactly how far you were supposed to be away from him. The cool thing is that the game gives you like an instant reload. So if you do fail a mission, you press select, it reloads the mission straight away. You can skip through all of the cutscenes and you can just start off where you were. So it didn't feel that aggressive, but it was quite annoying to be like, well, I don't understand why I'm failing. Like this just doesn't really make sense. But I do also remember those other games from the time also being quite fussy with some of their missions. Like I remember, I think the one with is it in Vice City where you have to fly the remote control helicopter and drop off bombs? I remember that being a pain in the ass more, I guess, because of the controls. But yeah, I do remember also having this kind of frustration with some missions in the original games where you were like, why am I failing? I don't really understand why I am failing. Yeah, so it's quite cool in that respect because it is very authentic to those games. So if you have been itching for a Grand Theft Auto experience that feels like Grand Theft Auto 3, San Andreas, or Vice City, but you aren't really convinced about the newer GTA Trilogy collection, which I know Rockstar, they patched it and it's better than it was when it released at launch. But this game will definitely scratch that itch if you are in the mood for playing an older GTA game, which is cool because I honestly didn't think it would do that. I thought it was going to be something completely different. Like if you've ever played the Sims games on the DS, the Sims games, like at least like the Sims 2 and I think Sims 3, like are just completely different to the computer game. Like it's almost like a story mode for those games. So it's not like that. It is like an authentic, like I would say toned down in scope, but not necessarily in features of a GTA game from the 2000s, which is really, really cool. And much like those classic games, I never actually finished GTA Chinatown Wars. I was playing it whilst I was on holiday, so we went on holiday for a week, and every night me and my wife would take turns looking after our daughter. So when she was asleep, I would go on the balcony of the hotel and just play my DS whilst there was like entertainment going on in the courtyard below, which was really, really nice. And I enjoyed it whilst I was playing on holiday, but when the holiday ended, it was when Hades 2 released, so my priorities shifted to that. And I went through the mission list online, and I actually found out I got exactly halfway through the game. I think there are 64 missions, and I was on mission 32. And as I said above, because the gameplay was a bit repetitive, I really didn't feel the urge to go back to the game once Hades 2 released. However, I have recently bought a Nintendo DSi XL, and mostly because next year I really want to play Pokemon White 2, and I really want like the premium DS experience for it. So the XL with the bigger screen is exciting for me, and I didn't want to play it on the 3DS because some people are like, well, why don't you just play it on the 3DS? Because the 3DS stretches out the resolution, so everything feels a little bit stretched. I wanted like the native resolution of the DS, so that's why I bought an XL. So my plan is over the Christmas break, the 2 weeks. I mean, I'm currently on paternity leave, so I'm always on break. But those 2 weeks where there's not a lot going on between Christmas and New Year, and I also have the week off after I'm back in England for that. So the plan is to finish off that game and also finish off another couple of games that I've not quite finished this year. And yeah, I'm looking forward to playing it on the DS XL. And like I said before, it's quite funny because I never actually finished any of the original 3D games either. As a kid, I'd always get too distracted by the sandbox aspects of the games and would just go off, and instead of doing the story missions, I would take CJ on a BMX and just cycle around all of the islands. Or I'd get really bored and be like, okay, I'm going to drive around the entire city and abide the law of the roads, So I'd stop at red lights. I'd make sure I didn't dent my car or whatever. I wouldn't crash into anyone. And I'd do that for hours and hours rather than play the story. And I have gone back to play some of the games. Like those games were released before this trilogy. They were released on PlayStation 4. It's kind of like backwards compatible games. And I remember picking up Vice City there and also just playing it for maybe 4 or 5 hours and I remember like getting quite far in the story, like further than I'd ever got, but then again was just like, okay, this is enough. Like I've had that experience, I've had that hit of nostalgia. The game really doesn't keep me in it enough to want to finish it, and that was the same with this one. But yeah, so it also adds to that effect of like, if you are looking for a classic 2000s GTA experience, Chinatown was, even to its sort of bad side, does that as well. That it does feel a bit repetitive and kind of you can lose your interest in it. But that then brings us on to like, did the DS actually need a Grand Theft Auto game? And I think I don't think it needed one, but I think it's cool that it has one, because they did go out of their way to add some DS exclusive features to the game and give you a reason to play it on your DS. So for example, you have to navigate through your sort of phone and computer system. Like it's crazy because the big thing in this is like you get emails, and you get so many emails, like it's almost too realistic. And it's just funny thinking back when you play these games that like, this must have been like, oh my God, this is like modern technology with these emails. And now, emails are whatever. It's a bit like, I think in GTA 4 where they added the mobile phone, and it was like, whoa, they put a phone in this game. That's crazy. And it has apps. And and it's just kind of like this with email, which I think is quite funny. But it is very easy to navigate through it, through your emails and through other notifications that you get on this sort of personal computer that you have. It's also great for the map in the game, so you can open up the map and plan routes to safe houses, to missions, to dealers that you might want to, which is pretty cool. And then there are also some specific, like DS specific or touchscreen specific mini games that have been added to the game. So for example, if you hijack a parked car, you actually have to like physically hijack it. And this is done via the touchpad with the stylus, where you use the stylus to unscrew screws. You take the panel off, and then there are the wires, and then you have to cut the panels and then drag the wires over to each other to start the car, which is quite cool. And furthermore, you can also use the touchpad to aim your throwables like grenades and Molotov cocktails. So you hold the stylus on the touchpad, and then like a little green arc will appear from Huang, and then you move on the touchpad, and that will aim the arc, and it can make the arc longer or shorter, and then that's how you throw your projectiles, which is quite cool. And it's responsive and makes sense for the control scheme of the DS. On the other hand, I did find playing the game a little bit cumbersome because you're always having to hold a stylus, and it often meant you couldn't press other buttons because your hand was holding the stylus. So, for example, I always remember with driving, I'd often put the stylus on my lap drive, so I was holding it, because you need to obviously use the direction pad, the D-pad, and then the buttons on the face buttons, and then you also can use the triggers to like pull your handbrake. And yeah, I found it easier to put the stylus down whilst driving and then pick the stylus back up. The problems was that most of the times when you were driving to places in missions, there would then be a firefight there. So then you'd have to like pick the stylus up, like get out of the car, find whichever weapon you wanted to use with the stylus, and then start shooting. So it did feel a little bit cumbersome, but it wasn't too bad. And one other thing that is unique, I guess, to this game, and it feels specifically unique to the DS, is that this game it's strange because in the game you basically can buy and sell drugs. You become a drug dealer, and it never quite felt normal using a Nintendo stylus to like basically load bags of cocaine and heroin from a dealer's car into your drug suitcase. So like you literally have to like drag them over. It felt a little bit surreal doing that. But also kind of cool. And it's a great way to make money in the game, like most of the way, like, which was a little bit, I thought, a bit off balance. Like the main missions, you don't really get paid any money. All of the money is in the drugs. And it's kind of, in quotation marks, cool, because there's almost like a drug market out there. So you'll get tip-offs to say, oh, this guy is selling weed at like a cut price rate. So weed might usually sell at $20 a bag, but he's selling it for $5. So you drive across the city to this dealer, buy as much weed as you can, and then you get another notification that says, oh, this guy needs to buy a load of weed for a college party. So you drive all the way over to him, and he'll buy them off you for $50 a bag. So then you kind of like, min-maxing, turning over profit, which is quite interesting. Then you can use that money to then buy things like safe houses in the game, or new weapons or armor. And and honestly, I think the best thing about the game is that it is still a GTA game through and through. And even though it's on a Nintendo console, nothing is really cut in that respect. Nowadays, I could never imagine Rockstar putting a GTA game on a Nintendo Switch 2, or specifically develop. Well, actually, not. Maybe I could imagine them now putting GTA 5 on it. I can't imagine GTA 6 ever come into it, like especially not at launch. And I can never really imagine Rockstar breaking off a team to make a game specifically for the Nintendo Switch, because I think Nintendo has gotten even more sort of anti-adult in recent times. Like I can't really think of any 18 plus game on the Nintendo Switch. I don't know if Balatro is still considered 18 plus. I know for a while it was, but again, that's not really the same level as what GTA is in kind of terms of what the story it tells, what you were doing in it, it's I kind of like miss that era where the DS and PlayStation Portable or PlayStation Vita would get spin-off games that weren't necessarily the exact same as the core games, but were still high quality and still sort of like still worth buying. I guess nowadays that doesn't really exist, because most developers put their actual full game on the Nintendo Switch or the Switch 2. So there's no need for spin-offs anymore. But yeah, it was like a weird time where you would see something where you're like, okay, there's this new Kingdom Hearts game on the DS. I like Kingdom Hearts, I'm going to buy this. And then you would buy it and more or less just hope that it was going to be good. And with those Kingdom Hearts games, I guess they were usually good. But, there were some games where you would see like movie tie-ins and like, I'm going to buy this on my DS or my Game Boy Advance. And then you'd get it and be like, well, this is completely different to the experience I'm having on the Xbox. And I really like that this game, it is a different experience, but it's still, the cores are still there from those GTA games from the 2000s. And it makes me really interesting. I actually own Bully, the other Rockstar game from the 2000s on the Nintendo Wii. So I'm really interested to go and play that because I think people consider the Wii version the best version of Bully. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's the reason why I bought it, because I've never played Bully. So I'm like, I might go and play that now just to see how that works as well. But that then leads us to the question, should you play Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars on the Nintendo DS? And Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars is a piece of both Rockstar and Nintendo history. It's one of the only 18 rated games on the Nintendo DS and is often rated as one of the best games on the system too. I don't think you need to go out of your way to play it, but if you've got an itch for a classic Grand Theft Auto game from the 2000s and a Nintendo DS lying around, it might be worth picking up, especially as it sells on eBay for around £15. It's an authentic Grand Theft Auto game where Rockstar pulls no punches, the story is good with the same humour and charm as any other Grand Theft Auto title, and the gameplay is enhanced by the DS's touchscreen and stylus, which isn't the case for many other DS games. I'd love to see Rockstar do more of these smaller GTA spin-offs in the future, though I know that's highly unlikely. Therefore, it makes games like Chinatown Wars even more special and ones we shouldn't forget about. So that has been my review of Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars. Like I said, I didn't finish it, but I still feel like I played enough of the game to give it a fair review. Because I don't really think there's going to be any big gameplay twists or story twists in the second half of the game. But like I said, I am planning to play it anyway. So if there is some big twists or big gameplay changes, I will kind of do a part 2 of this episode and let you know what I thought about the ending. But as always, guys, I would like to say thank you for listening and or watching the episode 76 of the Beat Your Backlog podcast. I'd love to know if you've played Chinatown Wars, and if so, did you play it on the PSP or on the DS? And also, if you haven't played it, or if you have, do let me know what your favorite GTA game is and why. I think my favorite GTA game is still San Andreas. Like, San Andreas felt like the perfect game out of those three. Rockstar learned a lot from GTA 3 and then learned a lot from Vice City, and San Andreas became that ultimate playground. Like, I loved that you could really influence how CJ looked with like his weight and his muscles or whatever. Like, more the kind of just the customization of CJ in general, the story, the big twist in the story, the sort of gang war elements of it, where you were taking over certain parts of the city and then you'd be off doing a mission, and one of the other gangs would take over your territory and you'd have to race over there to prevent them completely capturing it. I love that aspect of San Andreas, the setting, the music. That's why it's my favorite. But I do really like Vice City too. But San Andreas kind of tops it for me. If you're a Spotify, Patreon, or YouTube listener, you can let me know by commenting on the episode wherever you're listening to it. And for anyone listening elsewhere, please do let me know on Blue Sky. Just search for Beat Your Backlog or join our Discord. The link is in the description. Also, if you're interested, you can check out my full written review of the game over on Patreon. The link will be in the description of this podcast. Speaking of Patreon, if you enjoyed this episode and would like to show your support, consider joining my Patreon at the $2 or $5 tier. If you do, you'll get access to all of my content 24 hours before everyone else and get access to my Patreon exclusive podcast, Beat Your Bonus. Yes. If you're in the mood to listen to more content about Nintendo DS games, check out episode 67 of the podcast for my review of Pokemon Ranger. There probably aren't many people reviewing Pokemon Ranger in 2025, so if that interests you, please go over there and listen to it. And finally, Beat Your Backlog needs your support. If you enjoyed the episode, please consider subscribing and or following wherever you are listening. My daughter is starting to wake up now, so I'm going to have to say goodbye. That's perfect timing. Bye-bye, guys.